Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast. I'm really thrilled to announce a very special guest today. Wes Cuprill is the sales, marketing and systems maestro at Advisor Architect. He's a graduate of Indiana University and started his career in supply chain management, where he developed expertise in business systems and processes. Dan's brought the same expertise with him to Advisor Architect, which is a company that he runs with his father, Dan, helping financial advisors and attorneys to run efficient, profitable practices. Wes, it's so great to have you here. I've interviewed your dad, Dan, and we've had a great time chatting about mindset and how it impacts his success. And I'm really thrilled to have you on the podcast to hear from you all about the roles mindset has played in your life and how particularly you feel it impacts financial advisors and all the success that they can achieve as well. So very warm welcome.
Thank you for having me, Nina. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's start off with some personal stuff. I know you did a big pivot from what you were doing before, and I was working with Dan at the time when he announced that you were joining his company. And he was very excited about it. So I'd love to hear from you. What was the thinking behind that for you?
Absolutely. So it all starts with the decision, what I studied in college. Growing up, watched Dad build his business from the ground up. And I had this weird mindset that I didn't want to ride Dad's coattails, if you will. So I went to Indiana, studied supply chain with the idea that I wanted to chart my own course. So I didn't study finance, didn't do anything that he was doing, went my own way. That landed me in the corporate world, which I will ultimately say was awful. I'm very glad to no longer be in that world. You know, it's very suffocating. And for someone who's very independent minded, I found, okay, I need to do something different and kept trying to look for that. Over time, my mindset was changing where I saw what Dad was doing with the financial advisory practice. He had started Advisor Architect. And Thanksgiving weekend, a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago, I was already planning on saying to him, hey, do you need any help on the side? And he actually came to me with a full-time offer and says, do you want to come work for me? And I said, absolutely. And it was this mindset shift where I realized, okay, it's not really riding Dad's coattails here. It's all about the effort that I then put in. Sure, you know, it's an opportunity that he started, but it's up to me to put into it to build it from here. So that was a nice shift that I was able to overcome kind of that block, if you will. It was insecurity at the time of saying, oh, people are just going to think, you know, Wes is riding in Dad's wake, but that's not it. You know, nobody's thinking that. That's all in my own head. So the mindset change there was good to be able to tell myself, okay, let's make a great opportunity out of this, turn it into my own and really see this thing grow. And I'm excited and glad that I did it.
It's interesting, isn't it, how we can think one thing and then suddenly something shifts and we start thinking in a different way. And I've always found mindset so interesting because we make our decisions based on our thinking and the evidence that we've collected. So what do you think it was that shifted for you? How did you start seeing in a different way? I'm intrigued by how our thought patterns can change.
Yeah, you know, I think the switch for me was just realizing how much happier I would be working with Dad on this opportunity. And once I got into it, I was very quickly able to get rid of that head trash that said, oh, well, you know, this was given to you. You know, how lucky. It was one of those, you know, you got to outweigh it here. What means more? And for me, it was being happier and being able to also be in a job where what I produced actually mattered. I think that was one of the hardest things in the corporate world is when you're asked to do something, oftentimes it was, okay, thanks, especially being younger, it was, okay, thanks, kid, you know, we'll take it from here. A lot of what I was doing felt like school projects that I was producing all this stuff that ultimately wasn't used. So to be able to move into a role where everything that I was doing was ultimately used, that very quickly it was like, okay, I don't know why I was sitting here negatively thinking about joining Dad as a bad thing. It's absolutely a good thing. You know, I'm able to produce and and do good things with this.
And get listened to.
And get listened to. Exactly.
And what's the contribution that you want to make?
I think the contribution that I want to make is really growing Advisor Architects into a firm that really is instrumental for financial advisors when it comes to increasing their profitability. Right now we're in that consulting space with a little bit of content creation and marketing. I really want to grow us into a sort of outsourced marketing firm for a lot of these financial advisors. Be able to say, hey, we're the experts here in the content, in the systems to help you bring in consistent prospects, the right prospects for you. That way you don't have to worry about it. We are that person. You don't have to go hire it. You don't have to sit there and do it yourselves. We do it for you at a cost-effective level and really help you streamline your practice over time. So that's the grand vision.
Yeah, and I know the content that you produce and the help you give is absolutely top quality. So in your experience and from what you've seen, how do you see financial advisors getting in their own way? How do they trip themselves up? Because it's not the most talented, it's not the ones, the best looking, it's not the ones with the best connections necessarily who do the best. It's that opportunity is available to everyone. But why do you think some financial advisors really have an amazing practice, which gives them a good work-life balance, and others struggle to get there? How do they get in their own way?
A lot of those that struggle are the ones that kind of have a starving mindset around it. I think that's the right way to put it, where they'll take every prospect that comes in the door, where their mindset is, I have to bring in as many people as possible right away, or else this isn't going to work. And a lot of those advisors, they have some success initially with building their practice, but ultimately what ends up happening is many of those clients that they signed on end up becoming not very good clients. They become very difficult to work with because they weren't ideal for the advisor, because the advisor had this mindset that I have to bring on everybody. When we work with them and put them through our selling system that is all about attracting the right prospect and closing what we call ideal clients, they're so much happier after that. One, they have this mindset of, okay, I don't need to sign everybody. And having the right clients is far more profitable than just bringing as many in as we possibly can. So that's one of the big mindset shifts for advisors from, having a good practice to having a great practice. And then the other mindset shift is a lot of them, unfortunately, are fed a lot of bad information from their vendors, where it's all about growth, revenue. They're taught that and drilled in, and that's all they hear. We come in with a different messaging that says you need to look out for yourself first. Focus on profit first. And when they hear that, it really resonates. And they realize, okay, yeah, if I'm just focusing on myself, I don't need all this overhead. I don't need to be spending all this much money. And when we help them really save a lot of money right up front, that's the same as bringing in 10, 20 million in assets under management. So they just saved a ton of money without having to go find new clients. So that's been a really powerful thing as well.
Absolutely. I know the focus is very much on profit, and that's something that very few people talk about that. Mm-hmm. Because as you said, that's the stuff that matters. The revenue can grow, but it doesn't mean that your profits are growing. And that's a really big lesson for people to learn and to absorb that and run their business from that point of view. So, obviously you've changed direction and it's been a big pivot for you. And, mm-hmm. From the sounds of it, you're really enjoying it. So when you do have a setback, because obviously when you're, in a business and you're building up a business, things don't always go to plan. So when you experience a setback, how do you get over that? Do you spend a lot of time licking your wounds, or are you pretty resilient and you get back up on your feet quite quickly? How do you learn lessons from that? What's your experience with setbacks?
I think it depends on the setback, ultimately, how major it is. But for me, I'm fortunate enough to have a great support group that I can access, whether it be friends, family. Obviously, working with dad is really great. He's not only my dad, he's my boss, but we have a very good working relationship and personal relationship that I can leverage. But even if I wasn't working with him, I have him to be able to access. And then also, frankly, professional help. I'm not afraid to admit that occasionally I'll go out and seek, therapy help. And that goes a long way. Being able to access that support group. To kind of expand upon that a little bit, I think in today's day and age, it's often hard for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, probably males more generally, unable to really connect with a support group and allow themselves to be vulnerable, for lack of a better word, and access that help. When we run into setbacks, we tend to internalize it, and that just makes the problem worse. The sooner you're able to say, okay, there's a problem here, let me go talk to somebody about it, it can be anyone. I've always found that extremely helpful. It doesn't have to be a eureka moment that comes from these conversations. It just really, for me, I call it mental oil changes. It helps me kind of clear out the gunk and get the engine running better. So when it comes to setbacks, it's all about accessing that support group, really airing out the issue, getting different perspectives, and then working through the problem from there.
And what's been your biggest breakthrough in terms of an aha moment about what you are capable of? Because often we think, well, the world's causing all my problems, but obviously our mind is causing all the problems. We're creating it within. So what's been your biggest aha and breakthrough in terms of your mindset and how you can leverage it and use it to help you to achieve what you want rather than it working against you?
I don't think I've had an aha moment. It's been a progression over time with really developing a more resilient mindset. I think a lot of it started with first job out of college, where it was not a great working environment. And too often, I know people who just stay in that environment. They sit and complain and they don't take the action to make things different for themselves. One thing I've always prided myself in is when I know something is wrong, I put in the steps necessary to change that situation. So that's kind of been my aha moment, where the first time that I said, all right, I'm going to change this, and it worked. I knew, okay, this is the formula for when there's setbacks, when there's something negative in life. It's all about the action that you put in. You can sit there and just allow the world to roll you over. But I firmly believe everybody has the ability to change their circumstances if they just put in the work necessary to make that happen.
And this is very relatable to the entrepreneurial world and the financial advisor world, because I work with financial advisors and a lot of them are working on the mindset about taking action, and there's procrastination going on and they don't want to do the work that's required to grow their AUM. So what is it about that can you shed any light on where that's coming from? Why there's that resistance to take the action in their business?
I think a lot of it stems from taking it all on themselves. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs, there's this mindset, and I even had it myself, where you got to do everything yourself. We take on all of this responsibility, all of this workload, and when you do that, nothing gets done. I had a shift finally, and it really did start when I came to work for Dad, that, okay, I don't have to do it all myself. I can even go to him and say, I need you to do this. There's other outsourcing things that you can do to say, hey, I need your help with this. Can you go do it? And for, nominal costs at most, it can get done. That's what we find with a lot of advisors, that they're not willing to go out and ask for that help. It's just, I got to do it all myself. And when you do that, you get overwhelmed by all the tasks at hand. So at least for me, when I had that mind shift of I don't have to do it all myself, I can go out and get the help that I needed. that really freed me up, because the stuff that, okay, these are the tasks that I have to do, I'm far more effective in getting them done. And then I don't have to worry about all the other menial stuff that was bogging me down.
Yeah, the $10 an hour work, which an
Exactly.
administrative assistant can do, and they'd be very good at doing it, and it's really valuable work, but it's not worth the time of a financial advisor doing it. And that is a big shift to make. And it's not something you can keep telling that same person again and again, but it's when they get it internally. And this is the interesting thing with mindset, because you can keep saying and reading the same thing and the same piece of advice, but it's only when you get to accept it internally and you think, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's when we make that big shift. And it's and what you said about, guys not feeling that they feel, it's almost like there's this feeling of weakness,
Vulnerability.
a vulnerability to deal with the mindset, and they should just be able to push through it and reach their goals by just working harder or whatever it is. So this is a big, do you feel there's a shift now that guys are becoming more okay with talking about mindset and talking about their challenges more openly? Or do you feel that in the financial advisory world is still very much a stiff upper lip, as we say in England, and you just push through it? Do you think things are changing?
I don't know yet about the financial advisory world. I think generationally things are changing, at the very least with my own generation. There's a lot more openness to talking about the issues at hand. A lot of these problems, I probably sound like an old man yelling at clouds. Social media at large is a lot of the reason for these problems. And it's easier said than done just to turn it all off. Once you do, life becomes a lot easier. I've tried my best at that. But there is a shift with my generation of being open to talking about things. And I certainly like to play my part in that. I'm very open with the help that I'm seeking, the problems that I'm facing. And I know full well they're nowhere near as bad of problems that a lot of other people have. I'm very fortunate in life, but we all ultimately have our problems. So that might be another thing about it too. While people don't like being vulnerable, they also feel that, well, their problems aren't as bad as everybody else's. When you have that mindset, you're just going to sit there and stew with your issues. We all have problems that we have to address and be willing to talk about them. And not being afraid to talk about them has really helped me a lot. Initially, you got to get over the vulnerability and feeling like, okay, I'm kind of a burden to others when I'm talking about my issues. But every conversation that I've had where I've talked about, okay, these are the things I'm dealing with, it immediately opens the other person up and they start talking about things. And it really starts that conversation. And, both of you end up walking away feeling better at the end of the day. I hope with financial advisors, it moves in that direction. It's certainly still a much older demographic, an older male demographic. I'm interested to see how that changes. Technology is certainly playing a part in a shift for financial advisors. We'll tell advisors all the time, you're a commodity now. Everything that advisors offer can be done online for free these days. So you have to find other things to offer. And it's causing a lot of the younger generation not to come into the industry, but we're not going anywhere. Advisors are here to stay. So I think more young people will come in and the mindset will shift to being able to be more open, talk about things, and develop a more resilient mindset.
Yeah, and that resilient mindset is the foundation of everything. It's the foundation of an amazing practice, because if you don't have the resilience and the big vision and the I can have this attitude, then you're going to keep hitting a brick wall again and again. And it's interesting because it's probably one of the most overlooked parts for entrepreneurs, because they're busy with marketing and selling, and that's all very, very important. But the marketing and the sales don't work as well if you don't have the right mindset, that you have very strong belief in yourself, and you know that it's possible for you to achieve your dreams. And once you have that solid piece in place, then everything you do in your business is going to work so much better. And you probably spend less time working because you'll do less, but you'll do it much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I lost you there, but I think I caught all of that. It kind of brought up a thought that I had. A lot of entrepreneurs internalize everything, but we found that a lot of the most successful advisors are the ones that just don't mind rejection. They're just on to the next one. They've got that bulletproof mindset that they don't internalize a lot. A lot of born salesmen have that, but that's not everybody who's an advisor, not everybody who's capable of building a practice. It's once you're able to just say, okay, it is what it is, and move on to the next, you're going to be a lot better. And that was hard for me. I remember my early conversations of sitting there internalizing everything, and then just realizing at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, and you're not going to win them all. Just keep moving on, keep moving forward. As soon as you shift that, it's going to be easier.
How did you shift that fear of rejection?
Just kept exposing myself to it. I don't really think there's anything that you can tell yourself. It's like learning to ride a bike, practice. The more times you fall down, the fewer you will in the future. So the more times I'm rejected, sucks early on, it gets better over time. It's just all about the exposure.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest fears I find with financial advisors, and the one thing that they fear doing, which if they were to do it would really grow their practice, is they don't like doing the outreach and they don't like doing the follow-up. And this is the simplest way, it's the quickest way to have a conversation with a prospect.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not prospecting, then they're not growing. But this is one of their biggest fears because they fear rejection.
Absolutely. Yeah. On top of that, though, we kind of preach a different method with that helps a lot, where rather than chasing, have the prospect come to you. So that's really built into our marketing systems to not so much protect that, but to really develop a system that has prospects raising their hand and say, I'm interested in what you have. And then when they come in, you yourself lead with no, essentially. You yourself go in with the expectation of, this might not be the right prospect for me. Be willing to tell that prospect, you're not good of a fit for me. And I think that really helps change that mindset, where you're not sitting there desperate to close every prospect and then by default afraid you're going to get a no. When you go in saying, I don't know if this person's right for me, it really changes the tone in your own head that says, okay, I'm not desperate to close this person. If I close them, great. But if not, I'll get up tomorrow and everything will be just fine.
Absolutely. That's such a great place to finish as well. So Wes, it's been amazing chatting to you. And I've really enjoyed finding out, about how you deal with things. And I don't want this to be patronizing in any way, but you are so far ahead on your mindset at your age that it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
So it's congratulations on that. So how can our listeners find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing at Advisor Our Architect?
Easiest way is our website, www.advisorarchitect.com. From there, you can find out everything that we do, all the systems that we offer. You'll also find a link to our podcast. I think that's a great way to really listen to what Dad has to say, get a feel for our messaging, our style. He's no holds barred, as you well know, Nina. Very entertaining, to say the least.
Very entertaining.
On our website, too, you can also order our Shock and Awe kit if you want to learn more. There's also a way to join our email list on the website. So it's a one-stop shop for learning more about us.
Absolutely. And if you are a financial advisor, I would highly recommend you check out the website. There are amazing trainings on there, fantastic tools. There's done for you systems, everything you could possibly need to have a thriving practice and a very full pipeline. And you'll also find the mindset training that I created for that in that system as well. So it's got absolutely everything. It takes you from A to Z. Thank you so much, Wes, for being here. And for everyone who's joined us, thank you so much for being here with us. Till next time, bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Nina.